everyone, ready for another deep dive. We've gotten so many requests from you guys to cover pituitary gigantism.
It's definitely a fascinating one.
It is, and we've got some medical excerpts on this condition.
Right.
I've got to say, just reading through them, I was hooked. Like, imagine growing to be almost 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
That's not a typo. There have been cases of people reaching that height. We're going to break down what causes this, the other surprising symptoms,
Right.
and even look at the cutting-edge treatments that are helping people with gigantism.
You know, it's really easy to get caught up in that wow factor of the height.
Yeah.
But it's so important to remember this condition specifically affects kids before their growth plates have fused. It's actually quite different from acromegaly, which happens in adults.
So we're not just talking about, like, adults growing taller. This is a whole different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to make things even more interesting, most of what we know about gigantism comes from individual cases. It's so rare that most pediatric endocrinologists might only see 1 or 2 cases in their entire career.
So this deep dive is really exciting.
Yeah.
We're practically medical detectives uncovering the secrets of this rare condition.
That's a great way to think about it.
So let's get down to it. What is going on in the body to cause this extreme growth?
It all comes down to an excess of growth hormone, or GH.
Okay.
But the source of that excess isn't always so straightforward.
Okay.
You might think it's just the pituitary gland, which is often called the master gland, but the hypothalamus can also be involved.
Okay.
That's like the control center for the pituitary.
Right.
And believe it or not, sometimes that GH excess can come from a completely different location in the body, what we call an ectopic source.
So it's like a rogue growth hormone factory setting up shop somewhere it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And to add another layer of complexity, genetics can be a major factor in all of this.
Okay, so let's unravel this genetic thread a bit.
Mhm.
What's happening at the DNA level?
Well, in some cases, a gene called the G-SPONK gene gets activated, leading to the overproduction of growth hormone.
Okay.
This can happen randomly, or it can be linked to McCune-Albright syndrome. Other times, mutations in different genes, like the MEN1 gene, can be the culprit.
Oh, wow.
And in families with a history of gigantism, mutations in the AIP gene are often found.
So there are all these different genetic players that can contribute to gigantism.
Right.
It's like a detective novel.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out who the real mastermind is.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about what this means for a child who's actually experiencing this condition. What does gigantism actually look like in real life?
One of the first things you'll notice is a rapid growth spurt.
Right.
These kids shoot up like a beanstalk, sometimes even before they start gaining a lot of weight, which makes it different from typical childhood obesity.
So it's not just about being a little taller than their classmates.
Right.
It's about growing at an incredibly fast pace.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just height. Their hands and feet might become unusually large, their facial features might coarsen, and they might even sweat excessively.
Wow.
In some infants, you might even notice macrocephaly, which just means an enlarged head.
So gigantism has this whole range of effects beyond just being tall. But how do doctors even begin to figure out what's going on when a child is growing so rapidly? I mean, they must have to rule out a lot of other possibilities, right?
Absolutely. It's a bit like solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
Doctors have to consider things like precocious puberty, where puberty starts too early, or hyperthyroidism, which is an overactive thyroid gland. But one of the first clues is usually elevated levels of something called IGF-1 in the blood.
IGF-1. That sounds pretty technical. What exactly is that and why is it so important?
IGF-1 stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. It's a hormone that's closely tied to growth hormone. When GH levels are high, IGF-1 levels usually follow suit.
So high IGF-1 levels are like a red flag that something might be up with growth hormone.
Exactly. And to get an even clearer picture, doctors use something called a GH suppression test.
Okay.
It's a bit involved, but basically, they give the child a sugary drink and then track their growth hormone levels. Normally, GH levels would drop after that sugar rush.
Right.
But in someone with gigantism, they often stay high.
So it's a real detective process.
Yeah.
So they've got the blood test, they're ruling out other conditions, but what about actually visualizing what's going on inside the body?
That's where imaging comes in. An MRI can give doctors a really detailed look at the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus.
Okay.
This helps them to identify any tumors or abnormalities that might be causing that excess growth hormone.
So it's like piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah.
Using blood tests, physical exams, and imaging to get that complete picture of what's causing the gigantism.
Absolutely.
Now, once they've solved the puzzle and confirmed the diagnosis, what happens next? What are the treatment options for gigantism?
There are three main approaches: surgery, radiation, and medication. If the MRI shows a distinct tumor, surgery is often the go-to option.
Okay.
They use a technique called transsphenoidal surgery, where they actually go through the nose to access the pituitary gland and remove the tumor. It sounds a little scary,
Right.
but it's actually a very precise procedure these days.
It's amazing what surgeons can do. But what if surgery isn't an option, or if it doesn't completely solve the problem?
In some cases, radiation might be used as an additional therapy.
Yep.
It can help to shrink tumors and reduce growth hormone production. However, radiation does come with some risks, especially in children.
What kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, one potential complication is panhypopituitarism, which is a big word that basically means the pituitary gland stops producing enough of other essential hormones.
Okay.
This can lead to a whole range of problems, from growth and development issues to problems with metabolism and even reproduction. And there's also the risk of cognitive effects, especially in younger children.
So radiation's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can be effective, but it's not without its downsides. That makes medication sound like a more appealing option. What are some of the medications used to treat gigantism?
There have been some incredible advancements in medications for gigantism in recent years. Older options like bromocriptine weren't always as effective,
Okay.
but now we have newer drugs that are much more targeted and much more effective.
Okay.
One type of medication is called somatostatin analogs. These medications, like octreotide and lanreotide, work by mimicking a hormone in the body that naturally inhibits growth hormone release.
So it's like they're sending in a decoy
Right.
to trick the body into producing less growth hormone.
Exactly.
Clever. But you mentioned other medications, right?
Yes, and this is where it gets really exciting.
Mm.
There's a medication called pegvisomant, and it's a game changer. It's what we call a GH receptor antagonist.
Okay, break that down for us. What does GH receptor antagonist actually mean?
So imagine that growth hormone is a key trying to unlock a door on a cell, and that door controls the cell's growth. Pegvisomant acts like a shield that blocks the keyhole, preventing the growth hormone from binding to the cell and unlocking that growth potential.
Wow.
It's incredibly effective at controlling both IGF-1 levels and the actual symptoms of gigantism.
So it's like pegvisomant is a superhero swooping in to save the day and prevent that excessive growth.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And the best part is that it has a really good track record in terms of safety and effectiveness.
That's fantastic news. It sounds like there's a lot of hope for people with gigantism, especially with these newer treatment options. But I'm curious, beyond the physical aspects of the condition, what are some of the challenges that people with gigantism face in their daily lives?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely delve into further in our next segment. Living with gigantism isn't just about being tall. It's about navigating a world that isn't designed for someone who stands out so dramatically. Imagine trying to fit into a car, walk through a standard doorway, or find clothes that actually fit. And then there are the social and emotional challenges that come with feeling different.
I bet. It's easy to overlook those aspects when you're focused on the medical side of things. Well, this deep dive is already proving to be much more than I expected. I can't wait to explore those other challenges and really understand the full impact of this rare condition. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about all those treatments, but we were also starting to touch on those everyday challenges people with gigantism face.
Yeah.
It's easy to get focused on that extraordinary height, but what about, like, actually living in a world that's not built for you?
Exactly. Imagine the simple things we take for granted. Like walking through a doorway without ducking or finding clothes that fit comfortably. These become daily hurdles
Right.
for someone with gigantism.
Okay.
And then beyond the physical, there's that social and emotional impact as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine the stares, the awkward questions,
Yeah,
maybe even feeling like you're on display all the time.
right.
Especially for kids and teens, that's got to be tough.
Absolutely. Feeling different, especially during those formative years,
Right.
when fitting in is so crucial, can lead to isolation,
Yeah.
low self-esteem. And our sources highlight another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Some individuals with gigantism also experience delayed puberty.
So on top of everything else, they're dealing with a whole other
Yeah,
set of challenges related to their development.
exactly.
It's almost like this ripple effect. One aspect of the condition influencing another. What kind of support systems are out there for people with gigantism and their families?
Support is absolutely critical, and it comes in many forms. Connecting with others who understand these unique challenges
Right.
can be so empowering. Support groups, both online and in person, can offer a sense of community
Yeah.
and shared experience. Of course, family and friends play a vital role too, providing emotional support, practical assistance, just that sense of belonging.
It sounds like it takes a village
It
to
does.
truly support someone with gigantism. It's not just about managing those physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
It's about addressing the whole person, their emotional well-being,
Absolutely.
their social integration.
Mhm.
Do our sources mention any specific stories or anecdotes
Yeah.
about how people cope with these challenges?
While the excerpts focus primarily on the medical aspects,
Yeah.
they do touch on the broader impact. For instance, there's a case study mentioned about a young man with gigantism who became a successful artist. He used his art as a form of expression, a way to connect with others, and even to challenge societal perceptions of what's considered normal.
That's pretty inspiring. It shows that even with these unique challenges, people can find ways to not just cope, but truly thrive. It also makes me think about the future. What are some of the latest advancements in research that might further improve the lives of people with gigantism?
There's a lot happening on the research front that's really exciting.
Okay.
While medications like pegvisomant have been revolutionary, scientists are always striving for even more targeted and effective therapies, ones with fewer side effects and even longer-lasting benefits.
So we're talking about fine-tuning that treatment approach
Exactly.
even further. What else is on the horizon?
Well, there's a growing interest in understanding the long-term effects of gigantism, beyond just the obvious physical stuff.
Okay.
Researchers are studying things like cardiovascular health, joint health, even cognitive function in individuals with gigantism, to develop strategies to prevent or manage those potential complications.
It's great to know that there's so much research and effort going into improving the lives of people with this condition. It really speaks to the importance of awareness, not just in the medical community, but in society as a whole.
Absolutely. The more we understand about gigantism, the better equipped we are to support those living with it, whether it's funding research, advocating for better access to care,
Right.
or simply showing empathy and understanding. We can all play a part in creating a more inclusive and supportive environment.
As we've been exploring this topic, I've been thinking about how much we take our own bodies for granted.
Yeah.
We might complain about being a few inches too tall or too short.
Right.
But to experience such dramatic growth, it must completely shift your perspective
Yeah.
on what it means to inhabit your own body.
It's a profound thought, isn't it? It challenges our assumptions about what's normal
Yeah.
and makes us realize that those limitations often lie in our perceptions
Yeah,
rather than in our physical realities.
exactly. And it reminds us of the incredible resilience of the human spirit to face these extraordinary challenges and still find a way to live fulfilling lives.
It is, and I think it speaks to the strength and adaptability inherent in all of us.
Yes.
Faced with adversity, we find ways to adapt, connect, find meaning.
Wow, what a deep dive this has been.
It really has.
We've covered the science, the treatments, we even talked about the social and emotional challenges. But I think for me, what really stands out is that resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
It just makes you realize those limitations, they're often more about perception than reality.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is how adaptable the human body can be. People with gigantism often develop these unique ways of navigating their environment. It really underscores the importance of empathy, like really trying to see the world through their eyes.
Our sources have been incredibly informative,
They have been.
giving us this whole view of this rare condition. But they've also left me with some questions, like things I would love to ask someone who's actually experienced life with gigantism.
Oh, I bet. That's a great point. It's one thing to read about a condition,
Right.
but hearing personal stories, it just adds a whole other dimension.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to turn the question over to you, our listener.
Okay.
If you could ask someone living with pituitary gigantism one question,
Yeah.
what would it be? What insights would you want to gain? What perspectives would you want to understand better? Let that question kind of linger with you as you go about your day, as you reflect on everything we've discussed today. Because really, the goal of this deep dive isn't just to inform,
Right.
but to really inspire curiosity, empathy, and a deeper appreciation for the incredible diversity of human experience. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and until next time, Keep diving deep.
See you next time.